White House sent to Congress the opening bid on the Dreamer Act. It is very clear the White House wants the wall.
This is exactly what the base wants, and it also speaks to the issue of law and order.
Vice President Mike Pence taking a stand, walking out of yesterday's Colts game in Indianapolis.
The Vice President understands about the patriotism. He understands. He's also a lover. He loves the game of football. It's unfortunate this is where the game is going.
Stephen Paddock's brother is now in Las Vegas talking to the FBI, trying to help them find out the motive.
We were tripping over guns, tripping over long guns inside. There were so many.
Could there have been any law passed that would have stopped him?
No.
Right now there are reports of people hiding inside of their wineries in Northern California.
We're in survival mode. Don't take any chances. Don't get hurt. That's from the sheriff across the police scanner in Napa right now.
President Trump takes a hatchet to Obamacare regulations.
Small businesses under his plan will be able to band together and buy insurance together, which brings down the rates that they pay.
University. He was there with concert.
And he's
so
not too
nice.
big for us either. He still keeps coming back.
Right.
Some of them become big stars. They never come back, but at least Darius.
Do you know, I learned all their songs before they became famous because they were a big band, you know, in my hometown. And I had a recorded cassette of another cassette of another cassette because they hadn't had an album yet.
Great sounding.
It was awful. But the music's so good. They're great.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Today is Monday, and it is Columbus Day. It's a federal holiday, and a lot of stuff is closed today. So before you head off, check it out.
Don't that when you go to this on a federal holiday and you forgot.
It's closed. Just saying, it's closed.
Right. Meanwhile, because normally when you get to the post office, you're in and out so quickly. Meanwhile, 2 minutes after the hour. Hey, let's talk about President Trump because he's not waiting for tax reform to get through and not looking back at what went wrong with health care. He is pushing immigration reforms, and he's saying, listen, before we deal with DACA, which with these 800,000 kids that came here young and now in many cases 20s and maybe 30s, brought here by their parents, let's understand that we have to do immigration right, and it has a lot to do with border control and immigration control when it comes to enforcing those who might be heading our direction.
And so remember the president famously just a month or two or so ago said, okay, we're going to put the DACA program on hold. Congress has got to figure it out. Yesterday, the White House sent to Congress a 70-point plan, 70 things that the president has talked about during the campaign and what various congressional leaders have wanted. Is it a take it or leave it? No, this is the opening bid on trying to figure out if you want those DACA, the Dreamer kids to stay here, these are some of the things I want.
These are some of the highlights. Building that border wall, of course, we know he wants that. He wants to hire 10,000 ICE officers and 600 prosecutors. Mandatory E-Verify that verifies, confirms you're able to work here in the United States. And a new points-based system for green cards. He's saying it's going to be based on merit and not on your family connections.
Right. He wants to make sure that something that was done wasn't done in 2006 when they gave money to build a wall or a fence and they didn't. When Ronald Reagan, they said, listen, I'll give amnesty to the 3 million here, and then we're going to enforce the border. They never did. He goes, this time, we're going to do all this stuff first and then deal with DACA on top of that. But he does need 60 votes. So he's going to have to go in and he's going to have to do something called compromise. But in the end, they're going to end catch and release and add 10,000 ICE officers, but 300 federal prosecutors because they want to get people who are overstaying their visas. They also want to stop this thing where if you're in Central America, by some weird thing in 2008 that was signed into law that they just got public in Central and South America, that if you're here, you get to stay, you get a ticket to appear again, but basically you get amnesty.
Well,
that caused the
wall. And unlike what Congress has talked about doing and given to him in the current budget, he is asking for money to completely build the whole wall, not just a little part, the whole wall. Now, keep in mind, apparently many of the proposals many of the items on the 70-point list have been passed by the House, but they have gotten hung up in the Senate because they don't have enough votes for it.
So we talked to a White House official, dead set on doing this. They've already briefed leadership in both branches, in both houses, and they also want to say this is going to come forward. It's going to be part of DACA, but in many ways DACA is a distraction. It's a distraction from comprehensive immigration reform, which people run from, but they believe they would not have won this election unless those 30-plus states wanted this immigration reform put into play. And when people say it's hardline, they believe that hardline is the open borders that Hillary Clinton wanted and that Congressman Gutierrez professes. This is just America first.
I think people are worried about security. They want to make sure the borders are safe, and they want to make sure that we're not all paying for people who are here illegally, bottom line. All right, so last night, Sunday, yesterday was Sunday. Of course, you probably were watching games, and the vice president decided to go to Indianapolis because they were retiring Peyton Manning's number. So he goes to see the game. You know, he's from that state, and he wants to support the team. And the 49ers, they had 23 of their players that took a knee. That was the most of any of the NFL teams yesterday. And the vice president didn't like it. He decided to leave.
He did. Vice President Pence tweeted out, "I left today's Colts game because the president and I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, or our national anthem." And then the president yesterday tweeted out, "I asked Vice President Pence to leave the stadium if any players kneeled," 20-some did, "disrespecting our country. I am proud of him and Second Lady Karen." Well, you know what? Somebody just said in my ear, the president has just tweeted again regarding this. And if we have the brand new tweet, we can go ahead and put it up on the screen right now. It says, "Our country has been unsuccessfully dealing..." Oh, look at that. That's something else.
North Korea, but it's good for 25 years, getting billions of dollars.
Do you want me to look at Twitter
I was
and see
walking
what he wrote?
a little closer. Right. So anyway, now keep in mind, there are some on the political left who have said, look, this is a big PR stunt. He left Las Vegas and then flew there, and then apparently the poolers, the White House poolers, were told, be ready, he may leave.
Here's his tweet.
He may leave early. I'll have you read that in just a second. Okay. But keep in mind, apparently this particular event at the stadium was on the schedule for weeks. It wasn't until last week that they decided to go to Las Vegas.
Yeah, some people were saying it was a political move, that he just planned this. He knew they were gonna kneel, and this is just a PR move so he could tweet out a picture and make him look, you know, like he was the hero for leaving. But the president just tweeted and said the trip by Vice President Pence was long planned. There you go. He is receiving great praise for leaving game after the players showed such disrespect for country. You know, the new Twitter, you can see it's just retweeted.
Well, yeah, it's like a slot machine. So Jerry Jones of the Cowboys has been on the phone with the president, we know 2 weeks ago, and, you know, they were the ones who came up with this idea that before the game they would kneel. When the national anthem started, they would stand. Many people thought that was the way forward, but that wasn't good enough for Jerry Jones. He just made it clear, I'm not going down the field again, and when it comes to standing for the national anthem, you'll do it or you won't play. Listen.
We cannot, in the NFL, in any way, give the implication that we tolerate disrespecting the flag. We cannot do that. And I know the vice president did leave because, in his opinion, the teams were. We know that there is a serious debate in this country about those issues. But there is no question in my mind that the National Football League and the Dallas Cowboys are going to stand up for the flag. There is no equivocation here. We'll stand for the flag. If there's anything that is disrespectful to the flag, then we will not play.
He did have a player put his fist in the air, though, and he said, I didn't see that after the game. Cowboys did lose in a crushing defeat to the Packers.
Well, I tell you what, the Miami Dolphins owner, Steve Ross, wants the players to stand, and the coach made it a rule. And those who didn't want to stand had to stay in the locker room or the tunnel. And yesterday, 3 players stood in the tunnel until they were finished with the anthem, and then they ran out.
All right, so that it's not a visual of them actually taking a knee. They're just not out there. Right.
Meanwhile, we asked you for your input and what you think. And we got this from Mike via email. Just imagine the fallout if all the fans would be walked out with the VP. Something would change fast. They are talking about an organized walkout on Veterans Day weekend.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's November 11th.
Lou emailed, let them kneel in empty stadiums.
Right. Right. Remember why you get that paycheck for all those fans. This is an email from OB. He said, NFL equals non-patriotic football league. I'm not watching. A lot of people feel the same way.
Tony says, what part of National Football League do they not understand? Maybe those players kneeling should create the MFL, the Me First League. There's also another story that Colin Kaepernick says, if someone signs me, I will stand. And CBS said, okay, I'm backing off that story. It wasn't my first source. Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend says, no, he never said he was going to stand. So he's still working out in New Jersey somewhere, hoping for a call.
And it looks as if it could be having an impact on the National Football League. The Winston Group did a poll that was released over the weekend that showed that football is now our least favorite of the major sports. Number one, baseball.
Right. All right. I'm sure that that's not true. I would love to see another look at that. Football is by far the most popular. Yeah, is by far the most popular for
Jillian, what do you like?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm a football person. I always have been. This is just this year. This is just a different aspect of it.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how they feel and do I watch? I don't believe in this, but you know, it's
The football polls went down 31 points, I believe, according to the Winston Group, just in the last month or so.
I believe it.
And by the way, just to update you, JT Brown of the Lightning, he did not kneel. I told you this has become a thing in hockey now. He did raise his fist in the air, though, so he's the first in the NHL. So just to follow up on that. But we do want to begin right now with a Fox News alert and get you caught up on what's going on in California. Raging wildfires forcing mass evacuations in California's wine country. It's so bad, the Napa County Sheriff issuing the warning to his crew. He says, we are in survival mode. Don't take any chances. Windy and dry conditions are fueling the flames with wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour in some areas. Harvey Weinstein's film company may not bear his name anymore. Reports saying the company he co-founded with his brother, the Weinstein Company, will change its name. Known as one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, Weinstein was fired from the company over accusations he sexually harassed female coworkers for decades. President Trump and Senator Bob Corker in a war of words on Twitter. The attacks after the Tennessee Republican criticized the president's cabinet. Senator Corker tweeting, quote, it's a shame the White House has become an adult daycare center. Someone obviously missed their shift this morning. And the president responding by saying, quote, Bob Corker gave us the Iran deal, and that's about it. We need health care. We need tax cuts and reform. We need people that can get the job done. We'll get Counselor Kellyanne Conway's take on this when she joins us live in the next hour. And those are your headlines. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Some people were wondering yesterday, why would the president say the initial tweet about Bob Corker? It looks like there's an item in the Washington Post yesterday talking about fiscal responsibility and how the Republicans have kind of let it go. And the president didn't like it. And then, boom, next thing you know, a tweet war.
Whatever Bob Corker thought, he could have done it personally and privately. The president takes his calls. They golf together. So to go public with these critiques are just, I think it's self-serving.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, 13 minutes after the hour. President Trump tweeting moments ago about North Korea saying billions of dollars and decades of bad policy are not working. Steve alluded to that. So what's the president's end game? General Jack Keane has an idea. He's next.
Plus, this wanted man issued a challenge to police on Facebook. How did that work out for that guy? Stick around.
President Trump tweeting moments ago on North Korea, writing this: our country has been unsuccessfully dealing with North Korea for 25 years, giving billions of dollars and getting nothing. Policy did not work. So what exactly is the president's end game? Here to weigh in, Fox News military analyst, former vice chief of staff of the U.S. Army, retired four-star general, General Jack Keane, who was actually offered the defense secretary position, but unfortunately the timing wasn't right. All right, General, what's the president up to?
Well, first of all, you know, our end state dealing with North Korea is very clear that the administration has set this end state out right from the beginning and they haven't moved from it, and that is to denuclearize North Korea. In other words, it's not sufficient to stop the ICBMs. It's sufficient to stop miniaturizing nuclear weapons to put on those ICBMs. You must get rid of all nuclear weapons. So this takes us back pre-2005 as an end state. Their strategy is to isolate North Korea and apply maximum pressure. And they began that strategy, Brian, the first week of the administration, when Secretary Mattis was sent to the Far East, and he told our allies in the Far East that the military option was back on the table. And then the rest of the national security team, to include the vice president and the president, began to convince our allies and also North Korea and China that we were serious about the military option, because Obama never was. And then the president had some good fortune, and it was Bashar al-Assad conducting a horrific attack on his own people with chemical weapons. On the very weekend that President Xi was visiting Mar-a-Lago, the president retaliated, informed the Chinese president what he was doing, and at that point, the Chinese president knew he had a different president in the White House, and things changed as a result of that.
General, 20 nations have curbed diplomatic or business operations in North Korea that we've asked him to, and they're starting to end the whole let North Koreans work here and mail the money back program. So they're starting to curb it in the Middle East. They should just end it. The president says there's only one thing will work. He kept tweeting and indicating and winking about that. What does he mean?
Well, there's a couple things here. I don't know what he means because I'm not inside his head. And obviously he has information that none of the rest of us have. But the reality is this. The economic noose is tightening around North Korea, and you just gave some evidence of it. The countries are shutting down North Korea's embassies in the country. China is cutting off doing business with North Korea, with the Chinese banks. That is the most significant progress. If the Chinese carry this through, and we're in the beginning stages of it, that's the most significant progress any president has ever had in dealing with this issue on North Korea. So this economic noose is tightening. What Kim Jong-un is doing is racing to get this capability before his country pays an economic price. He believes that the United States will acquiesce if he has that capability. He's dead wrong because he's not dealing with Obama, he's dealing with Trump.
Japan says they fully back the president's hard line, and we know there's going to be a visit to China by the president in November. They don't want North Korea to dominate, so therefore they know they have to get this out of the way. I look for them to follow through on that, or else that's all the president will talk about. General Keane, great analysis as usual. Thanks so much.
Good talking to you, Brian. All
right, this volunteer firefighter and his 2 children were killed by an illegal immigrant on a Texas highway. So why did the driver get only 2 years in jail for this horrific crime? Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is next. And have you seen this? Soap maker Dove now in clean-up mode over this video. The critics call racist. What are they trying to do?
It is time now for your news by the numbers. First, $1 million. That's how much the Obama Interior Department spent on non-commercial flights over a 6-year period, according to the Daily Caller. One person spent $500,000. Next, 7 cents. That's how much gas prices fell across the country over the last 2 weeks. The drop coming as crude oil prices decline and refineries begin to reopen on the Gulf Coast after being damaged by Hurricane Harvey. And finally, 2. That is how many of the NFL's biggest stars were injured on Sunday. Houston Texans defensive end J.J. Watt fracturing his left leg, and New York Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. breaking his ankle. Our thoughts are with those guys. Steve, down to you.
Thank you very much, Ainsley. The story horrific and hard to hear. A Texas father and his 2 young children killed at the hands of someone who is in this country illegally, who we just learned will basically get a slap on the wrist. For those 3 precious lives lost, he was sentenced to only 2 years in jail. Their heartbroken mother joined Fox and Friends on Saturday, fighting for justice so that other families don't have to go through what she's going through.
For some reason, it seems to me that they feel that he should have some sort of special circumstances and he should be treated differently because he is an illegal immigrant. I want to see those laws enforced, and I want to see stricter punishment.
Let's bring in the Texas Attorney General. Ken Paxton joins us right now from Austin. Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much. Why did this guy only get 2 years?
You know, it's one of those things. I think our laws in Texas need to be stricter for this. And I think, you know, we've been dealing with this for years, dealing with sanctuary cities, trying to prevent people from coming into our country illegally. This is an area I think the legislature needs to address because I don't think the penalties are strong enough for people who commit these types of crimes.
I read in one of the local news sources down there in Dallas that a criminal defense attorney said a longer sentence would have required proving an intent to kill. This was a situation where this guy who was in the country illegally fell asleep behind the wheel of a vehicle, drifted over and killed the family, right?
That's correct. You know, people say this doesn't have consequences, illegal immigration. We've been tracking statistics in Texas for 6 years through our state police. We've had over 600,000 crimes, including 1,200 homicides. We've had 6,000 sexual assaults. And here we go again. How many of these stories do we have to have before we address this issue? And I am thankful that the president is making a significant impact here.
Your problem is the fact that this person who was in this country illegally was driving without a license, right?
That's correct. And my problem is also that this is only a 2-year sentence. When you look at what happened to this woman, she lost both of her children, she lost her husband, and the remedy is really a 2-year sentence.
I understand you told one of our producers over the weekend during the pre-interview that to you it feels like the court has more empathy for an illegal alien than they have for that family that lost those 3 people right there.
You know, it often seems that way. The real issue here, though, is the penalty and what kinds of penalties we're going to have for people here who are here illegally. The consequences for our state are dramatic, and I think the legislature needs to address this the next time they meet.
Well, that's the Texas legislature behind you, but you also told our producers over the weekend that you are thankful that we have a president of the United States who is trying to do more to enforce immigration to this country than any other president in American history.
That's correct. For 12 years I was in the legislature. We had very little support in addressing this issue. My state spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to stop illegal immigration. We had our hands tied by the federal government, and finally we have a president that's allowing border security, customs enforcement to do their job. I've talked to these guys on the border and they are grateful, and you can see the results. The border crossing, illegal immigration is coming down dramatically, and I think it's a result of what this administration and what the Trump administration has sought to do.
Well, Mr. Attorney General, our lead story this morning is that yesterday the administration sent over to Congress a 70-point plan saying, okay, you want the Dreamer program to continue, and or at least for the Dreamers in this country to wind up with some sort of a path to citizenship, then you're going to have to meet our 70 needs. And one of them, the first one, is building the wall. And it's not just part of the wall, it is the whole wall. What do you make of what you have read from the administration regarding how they want to deal with this situation?
Look, I'm really encouraged by this. As I said, for decades we've been dealing with this issue of crime, you know, illegal crossings, the impact on our economy, the cost to the state that we can't account for. So the fact that the president is pushing hard on this, he promised it and he's doing it, unlike, I said, like any president we've ever had in the history of our country. So I think most Texans are grateful.
All right. He is the Attorney General for the great state of Texas, Ken Paxton. Thank you very much for joining us from the capital city of Austin.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You bet. Have a great week. Meanwhile, we just learned from the FBI they are now apparently interviewing the brother of the Las Vegas shooter. We'll have details on that coming up next. Plus, this wanted man issued a challenge to police on social media. How'd that work out for him? Stick around. You're watching Fox and Friends. It's Columbus Day here in New York City. He has appeared on nearly every TV channel in the country over the course of the last week, the brother of the Las Vegas shooter. And this morning, we're learning he's being interviewed by the FBI. Will Carr is live in Las Vegas with the very latest. Will?
Well, good morning, guys, and a lot of new information over the weekend, including that Stephen Paddock's brother, who lives in Florida, is now in Las Vegas, and he's trying to help the FBI find that elusive motive, the reason why Stephen Paddock killed 58 people and injured almost 500 others. Also, we're learning that federal authorities believe Paddock may have had an undiagnosed mental illness, and we're finding out more about his preparation leading up to the attack and exactly what he had on the note on his hotel nightstand.
I did notice a note on the nightstand near wording platform. I could see on it he had written the distance, the elevation he was on, the drop of what his bullet was going to be for the crowd. So he had that written down and figured it out, so he would know where to shoot to hit his targets from there.
After continuing to talk to Paddock's girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley, authorities searched Paddock's home here in Nevada for the second time this weekend. It comes as Steve Wynn told Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday that Paddock and Danley frequented his hotels over the years.
If there's anything interesting that stood out over the 6 years, nobody that's ever worked here has ever seen the gentleman or the lady take a drink of wine, beer, or alcohol of any kind. Now, a lot of people don't drink, but considering their frequency of all the restaurants and their behavior as normal tourists, taking advantage of everything that's available in our resort, They never, ever imbibed in any liquor.
All of the hotels dimmed their lights for exactly 11 minutes last night, the exact time of the shooting 7 days ago. It's one of many touching tributes we've seen over the past week. Back to you.
All right, Will Carr live outside Mandalay Bay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We heard from the police officers in 60 Minutes last night. They said that when they approached the room, they saw that room service cart with the cameras on it. They saw the wires. They didn't think camera. They thought it's booby trap.
Right, and that's why they waited for SWAT to get there. But the security guard didn't, and he got there, he took a bullet, and then ended up alerting the shooter, who ended up killing himself, thinking the end was coming, so he wanted to take his own life. Man, if that security guard didn't do what he did, it would have been unbelievable.
Can you imagine what they didn't know what they were going to find when they walked into that room. They said that because the fire alarms had gone off, all of the sirens and all of the flashing red lights were going off, and they walked into a dark room. They said it was very eerie, like something out of a movie.
They figured there must be 50 other guys in here. That it can't just be that 60-year-old guy right there.
Right.
There's also an item out of one of the tabloids in London that suggested that given the headshot that he took, it looked like to some commenters that he may have actually shot himself accidentally. Wow. In which case would suggest, we heard from the sheriff last week, that he had an exit plan. So, wow. Still trying to put it all together.
All right, let's hand it over to Jill. You know, have some headlines for us. Good morning.
That's right. Good morning. Monday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's begin with this. Antifa is calling for chaos on this Columbus Day. The radical far-left group urging supporters to deface any statue in the country honoring explorer Christopher Columbus. The supervisor of one Long Island town joined us earlier, asking his community to take a stand.
What these organizations are doing to try to deface Columbus statues is un-American, and it's outrageous. And I'm asking people to be on the lookout today. If they see any of this going on, shoot pictures and video of it and call the police. We have to come together and send a very strong message of just how wrong it is.
Supervisor Saldino says his town will welcome all unwanted Columbus statues. The founder of Blackwater may now run for Senate. Eric Prince considering a Republican primary challenge to Wyoming Senator John Barrasso. Sources telling the Associated Press it's part of an insurgency against the Republican establishment led by former White House strategist Steve Bannon. Barrasso is a senior member of the Republican leadership team who, if challenged, would likely have the backing of Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Dove apologizing for a controversial advertisement many people are calling racist. The soap company coming under fire for a Facebook video showing a black woman turning into a white woman after taking her shirt off. Now, the company says the intention was to show Dove soap is for everyone, but critics say the theme is a throwback to racist ads from soap companies like this from the 1800s, depicting a black man turning white while he's being scrubbed. A wanted man challenges police on Facebook, promising to turn himself in if they get 1,000 shares and the public delivers. The man messaged Redford police west of Detroit that he'd throw in some donuts and promised to pick up trash around schools if he got the numbers. The post has more than 3,000 shares, but Mr. Champagne, that's I guess what he's calling himself, hasn't turned himself in just yet. Police say he's wanted on several warrants. So there you have it.
Is that his real name, Mr. Champagne?
I mean, I'm sure that's what he's calling himself. I'm not sure.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much.
All right, Ainsley, you have some exciting news.
I do. On Tuesday, next Tuesday, not this week, my new book comes out. And this is my next children's book. It's called Through Your Eyes, My Child's Gift to Me. And I'm really excited about it. So it's available on pre-sale right now, AinsleyEarhartBooks.com. And you can officially find it in the bookstores next Tuesday.
Now, do you know where you're going to be going?
I do. We have a list, and I also have put it on my social media. But I'm going to be in New Jersey next week on Monday, then in New York, Long Island, the next day on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'll be in Brooklyn, and then on Thursday, Connecticut, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm touring in South Carolina, my home state. Right. I'll be in Myrtle Beach on Friday, and then Barnes & Noble on Saturday in my hometown of Columbia, and then Fiction Addiction in Greenville, South Carolina.
Fiction Addiction?
Sunday. fiction addiction.
Wow,
They're
fantastic.
addicted to fiction.
Well, so where do we get it if we miss that or we're driving around in our tractor trailer and couldn't jot it down?
AinsleyEarhartBooks.com.
Okay.
And also on my social media. You can buy the book on Ainsley Earhart.
Show the backside.
Books.com.
The backside is beautiful.
Pasha Bellman is a photographer down in South Carolina, and if you live in the Myrtle Beach area or Charleston area, he can come to you. He is amazing. He's so talented.
Beautiful picture.
Thank you. My little girl, my Hayden. But it's about through your eyes, because what we learn as parents through their eyes. The first book was me wanting to teach her lessons that my parents had given me. But I've learned so much. When you have
Wait
a baby,
till they're 20.
I'm sure. You just learn about life. You have all these things planned for them, and then they're born, and you throw that out the window because all you want is for them to be happy.
Can
and
I
have
ask
good
you a
hearts
question
and
a lot
love
of people
God.
are thinking?
Yeah.
On this, have you thrown her and caught her? Or are you lifting her from
I am
your
just
feet?
lifting her.
Right.
I don't think I've thrown her and caught her.
Because the child toss is not something we...
I've thrown her into the pillows on my bed.
That's
She
okay.
loves that and giggles.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's going to be great.
Oh, there's Hayden. That was us going to a class.
That's great.
It's
Well,
a lot of fun.
congratulations.
Thank you
All right.
so much.
All right.
Thanks for y'all's support. Y'all are awesome.
All right.
1 week from tomorrow.
Yeah, and then your book comes out the next Tuesday.
The next Tuesday after that. It's exactly like this.
And
So
we're
it's
going
be
to tour
very
together.
competitive.
So you need a book to come out so the three of us can tour together.
There you go. Our good chance to go out and meet the folks.
That's right. That's right.
All right, 20 minutes before the top of the hour, the left slamming Vice President Mike Pence for walking out of the Colts game after players protested the anthem. But David Webb says the Vice President did exactly the right thing because he's on the right. He joins us next.
And she didn't stand for the pledge, so she was expelled from her school, and now she is suing. Did she get what she deserved, or does she have a case? We're going to debate it coming up. Vice President Mike Pence taking a stand, walking out of the Colts game in Indianapolis after nearly 24 San Francisco 49ers took a knee during the national anthem.
All right, in a tweet, the VP explained, I left today's Colts game because POTUS and I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, our national anthem.
Here with reaction, radio talk show host and Fox News contributor David Webb joins us from Miami. David, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Who's a veteran, by the way?
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Ainsley.
It's great to have you. Democrats are already saying, hey, how much did this publicity stunt cost us?
Well, let's see. It cost the American people nothing because the vice president and the president, elected to serve our nation, lead our nation, stand for the Constitution, the flag, and defend the nation, did what they should do, which is not stand for disrespecting the flag when players take a knee. Let's pause for a moment and take a breath here, guys, because this started with Colin Kaepernick in a protest against police officers and the shootings of blacks. Well, in that case, let me say this to the NFL players who want to do this. Turn around, take a knee to the police who stand there on the sidelines at every game and protect you. Take a knee when you walk out of the stadium and they stand there to make sure that some nut job doesn't run out of the crowd against you. Instead, they're disrespecting the flag. And I don't care what party you're from, what side you're from. American people, whether you look at the history of burning the flag, your First Amendment rights, your rights to protest in any way, Americans, by and large, see that as disrespectful to the flag. The Vice President, Mr. Vice President, thank you for standing up.
Well, we have two owners. In particular, the Giants owners asked the players to stand, two didn't. Jerry Jones says if you don't stand, you're not playing. And Stephen Ross is going the same way, and all the Dolphins stood. So in the big picture, do you think the president, for some who say the vice president made it worse because this thing was petering out, what do you say to them?
Yeah, they'd like to say it made it worse. I'd say it made it more in line with Americans, Brian. After all, what Jerry Jones did, the Dallas Cowboys, I'm a Giants fan, so kudos to Jerry on this one. They call themselves America's team. Well, if you're America's team, how do you not stand for America's flag? And on top of that, when you look at the fact that he's making the rules, he's making it clear you play for this team, you have your rights, but on this team, I've set a set of rules, just like you and I have rules at work. Anyone watching, we all have rules at work. These are the rules.
David, what does the flag mean to you? Because Brian reminded us at the top of the segment that you served our country.
I say this for anyone, whether you've raised your right hand or not. How many of you remember that moment? I was a young kid. I was barely 18 when I took that oath. And I claimed no great battles, no great
function, but I remember that moment because I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but I knew that I wanted to serve this country. And for anyone out there, whether it's putting your hand over your heart when you go to class or all the things, I remember that pride that we felt. Nobody argued when I was in grammar school and high school about putting our hands over our heart. Nobody argued about standing for the flag. We did it because it was a sense of respect. We started our day with the pledge.
They are the ones, they take a knee because there's racial injustice in this country. Don't you feel that way?
That they take a knee because there's racial injustice?
That's why Colin Kaepernick says that he took a knee. Because law enforcement, they prosecute the law unequally, and there's racial injustice in the country.
So go back to my earlier point. If you really want to protest that and your target, as they see it, is the police or the law enforcement bodies in this country, turn around and take a knee in front of that police officer. I get it. Your right to dispute, to protest, to take a knee, that's not in question. Your responsibility is what are you really doing? And by the way, Colin Kaepernick now apparently says, I'll stand if I get a job back in the NFL.
That was an erroneous report.
I read that too, David, but Brian said this morning it came out. They talked to his girlfriend. His girlfriend said that way.
I stand corrected for this one.
It's a fast-moving story. All right, David Webb, thank you very much for your point of view, joining us today from Miami.
Thanks for serving our country. God bless you, David.
All right, meanwhile, we're going to get Kellyanne Conway's reaction to the vice president's move at the top of the hour, as well as the Bob Corker kerfuffle over the weekend.
I like that word, kerfuffle.
Yeah,
Plus,
I can't spell it.
A teenager refused to stand for the pledge, so she was expelled from her school, and now she's suing the school district. Do you think she has a case? We're going to debate it coming up.